Today, I would like to introduce Edogawa Rampo's work titled, Diary of a Diarist. Synopsis. The narrator, an elder brother, finds a diary book in the study of his younger brother who had just recently passed away due to illness. The narrator, the elder brother, finds a diary book in his brother's study. He casually flips through it and finds his brother's serious and nervous nature, his faith, the troubles of his youth, and his feelings for a certain woman. The elder brother was surprised. He had assumed that his brother had died without ever having known love. The woman's name was Kitagawa Yukie. She was a distant relative of the brothers.
It was the night of the 7th day of his death. I went into my dead brother's study and took out some of his writings and other things he had left behind, and was left alone to ponder over them. It was still early in the evening, but the house was filled with tears, and it was quiet and still. Then, as if from a new school play, the sound of a peddler's call came from far away in a sad tone. I suddenly felt the long-forgotten childish and deep in feeling, and looked at my brother's diary, which I had found there. Looking at this diary, I could not help but feel a sense of pity for my younger brother, who had passed away, probably without ever having known love. A shy man with few friends, he spent most of his time in his study. His diary, written meticulously with a fine pen, is a good indication of his nature. In his diary, he writes with a sincere, if childish, sincerity about his doubts about life, anguish over faith, and the other troubles of adolescence that anyone his age would have experienced. I went through the pages one by one, feeling as if I were looking at my own past. Everywhere on these pages, from the depths of the writings, the timid eyes of my brother, like doves, were staring back at me. When I got as far as March 9th, something caught my attention so much so that I was so deeply moved that I let out a light yell. It was the name of a gorgeous woman who appeared for the first time in the diary's pure and innocent text. The woman, Yukie Kitagawa, whom I knew very well, was a beautiful young girl from a family distantly related to ours, and whose name was written Yukie Kitagawa Yukie postcard in the place where the sent column was printed. So my brother might have been in love with her. I suddenly had such a feeling. So, with a kind of faint shiver in my heart, I continued to look further into the matter, but contrary to my eager anticipation, I could not find any mention of Yukie in the body of the diary. The next day, there was a Yukie Kitagawa postcard in the inbox, and for several days after that, her name appeared in both the inbox and the outbox. The outgoing correspondence was sent from March 9th to May 21st, and the incoming correspondence started at the same time and continued until May 17th, a short period of less than 3 months. Not even on the last page of the book, which was his last page, did Yukie's name appear once. In fact, there were only 8 correspondences from his side and 10 from Yukie's side, and since both his and Yukie's diaries are labeled as postcards, it is hard to imagine that they contain any kind of language that would be objectionable to other readers. And from the overall tone of the diary, it does not seem likely that he intentionally left out something more than that. I closed the diary, feeling neither relieved nor disappointed. I felt sad and wondered if my brother had died without ever having known love. I looked up and noticed a small hand bunko on the desk, which was my brother's beloved small handbook. I wondered if there might be something hidden in that old-fashioned hand bunko, with its high Maki-e style, in which he had apparently stored his most prized possessions before his death, or if there might be something hidden in it that would soothe my lonely heart. Out of such curiosity, I casually opened the hand bunko and looked at it. Inside were various documents and other things unrelated to this story, but from the very bottom of the stack, I saw that it was indeed a blank piece of paper, as if it were a very important piece of paper. At the bottom of the stack, I found 11 postcards wrapped in a blank sheet of paper, which had been sent to me by Ms. Yukie. If they had not been sent by her lover, who would have kept them so carefully at the bottom of her pocketbook? With a sudden feeling of excitement, I examined the 11 postcards one after the other. My hands were even shaking unnaturally as I held the postcards in my hands. But what happened? I could not find the slightest hint of a love note on any of these postcards, or between any of the lines of the text. Then, did my brother, out of his timid nature, not even try to open up his heart, but just kept these meaningless postcards sent by his sweetheart as if they were a good luck charm or something, and made the most of them as if they were a token of his affection? And finally, did she pass away with unrequited feelings? I was faced with a postcard from Ms. Yukie, and my thoughts drifted from one thought to the next. But why was this? Eventually, I came to realize. My brother's diary only lists 10 times that he received postcards from Yukie. I had counted them earlier, but here we are now with 11 postcards. The last one is dated May 25th. I am sure that I did not find Yukie's name in the received column of the diary. I could not help but pick up my diary again and open the May 25th entry. Then I realized that I had overlooked something terrible. The receipt column for that day was left blank, but in the body of the message, I found the following sentence: "In response to your last message, Y sent you a picture." I received a postcard from Y in response to my last correspondence. Disappointed. I was too timid. Now it's too late to take back what I lost. Y must be Ms. Yukie's initial. No one else knows her by that initial. But what does this phrase mean? According to the diary, he has just written a postcard to Ms. Yukie's place. There is no way he would write a love note on a postcard. Then, did he ever send her a sealed letter which may have been his last correspondence, which is not mentioned in the diary? And did he receive this meaningless postcard as a reply? I can see that he and Ms. Yukie have not been in touch since then, so it could be so. But even if that is the case, the text of the last postcard from Ms. Yukie is too strange, even if it is meant as a rejection, because it contains only a beautifully handwritten letter of sympathy for her brother's illness. He had been on his sickbed since that time. And if his brother, who had so earnestly written down his outgoing and incoming messages, had sent a sealed envelope in addition to the 8 postcards, there is no way that he would not have written it down. Then, what does this phrase disappointment mean? When I think about it in this way, it seems that there is a secret that cannot be interpreted only from the facts that appear on the surface. This may have been a mystery left behind by my late brother, and should have been quietly left as it was. However, for some unknown reason, I have a tendency, when I come across even the slightest suspicious fact, to be like a detective going through the aftermath of a crime, unable to resist the urge to find out the truth. Moreover, in this case, not only was there the circumstance that the mystery would never be solved by the person himself, but also the fact that the reality or otherwise of the matter had a great deal to do with my own personal life, so my natural detective habit seized me even more strongly. I became absorbed in solving the mystery, as if I had already forgotten how sorry I was for my brother's death. I read his diary over and over again. I searched through every other piece of my brother's writing. However, I could not find any record of his love life. Come to think of it, my brother was not only extremely bashful but also extremely cautious, so no matter how much I searched, there was no way I could find anything like that. However, I forgot about it as the night went on and devoted myself to solving this seemingly insurmountable puzzle. It was a long time. Eventually, after various and sundry futile efforts, I became suspicious of the date on which my brother's postcard was sent. According to the diary entries, the sequence of events was as follows. Translated with www.deepl.com/translator free version. March 9th, 12th, 15th, 22nd, and April 5, 25, 25, and May 15, 21. This date schedule is against the psychology of those who are in love. Isn't it strange that correspondence to someone in love, even if it is not a love letter, becomes more and more difficult the later it is sent? When I compare this with the date of the postcard from Ms. Yukie, the strangeness stands out even more. March, on the 10th, 13th, 17th, 23rd, and April 6th, 14th, 18th, 26th, and May 3rd, 17th, 25th, and as you can see, Yukie-san responded to her brother's postcards, though they were all meaningless, and she actively corresponded with him on the 14th and 18th of April, and on the 3rd of May, at least these 3 times. If my brother was in love with her, why did he neglect to respond to these 3 correspondences? If he was in love with her, why did he neglect to respond to these 3 correspondences? According to the diary, he was not traveling at the time, nor was he ill to the point of not being able to write. Another thing is that, even though Yukie's correspondence was nonsensical, this frequent and frequent correspondence was not out of the ordinary, especially since the other party was a young man. But what was the reason why they had stopped corresponding with each other after May 25th, as if both parties had agreed to do so? Thinking about it, I looked at the date of my brother's postcard, and there seems to be a meaning there. Perhaps he wrote a love letter in code. And the date on this postcard may form the coded message. This is not too far-fetched, given my brother's penchant for secrecy. So, I tried to figure out if the numbers in the Niju could be Iroha, Aweo, or ABC, or if they could indicate the order of the letters. Fortunately or unfortunately, I had some experience in deciphering codes. But what do you think? The 9th day of March is I, the 9th letter of the alphabet, and the 12th day is L, the 12th letter of the alphabet, and so on. Oh, what a childish and at the same time patient love letter. He spent a full 3 months of his life to tell Heiko just one word, I love you. It is really a lie. However, knowing my brother's strange proclivities, I could never have thought that this was a coincidence. If you guess in this way, everything becomes clear. I know what disappointment means. While he sent the postcard that corresponded to the last letter Yukie-san still sent the same meaningless postcard. Moreover, it was just at the time when his brother was diagnosed with the dreadful disease by the doctor. The poor man was no longer motivated to write another love letter because of this double blow. And he died with a sad feeling that no one, not even his lover, had been able to communicate with him, even though he had tried. I was overcome with a dark feeling that I did not know how to explain, and I sat there, not wanting to get up. I stared blankly at the postcards from Yukie-san in front of me, which my brother had hidden deep in the bottom of his pocketbook. And then, oh, what a surprise! Let my idle curiosity be damned. How much better it would have been if I had not known all the details, but on the front of these postcards from Ms. Yukie, there was a postage stamp written in beautiful letters, with my brother's name written on the side, without a single exception, and the stamp was placed diagonally. It was done so neatly, as if it had to be done on purpose. It is not an accidental mistake. It was a long time ago, probably when I was in elementary school. I remember reading in a literary magazine that there was a method of secret communication by the way of stamps, and being a man with a strong sense of curiosity from that time, I used to read it often. Among them, I have never forgotten the part about how to show your love by placing a postage stamp diagonally, which I have actually applied once. This method was very popular among young men and women of that time. However, at the time when Yukie and her brother were corresponding, Koji Uno's novel Futari no Aoki Izaburo was published, in which this method was described in detail. It was a topic of conversation among us at the time, so both my brother and Yukie must have been familiar with it. So why was it that my brother, who knew this method, could not understand Yukie's feelings, even though she repeated the same thing for 3 months, until he finally became disappointed? I don't know either. Or perhaps I had forgotten about it. Or perhaps she was so excited that she did not even notice the postage stamps. In any case, the fact that he wrote disappointment in the letter certainly indicates that he was unaware of it. Still, I wonder if there is such an old-fashioned love in this day and age. If I am not mistaken, they were in love with each other, and they even expressed their love to each other, but neither of them knew the other's heart in the slightest, and one of them had to live a long life with a painful heartbreak and the other with a sad heartbreak. It was too much of a timid love. Yukie was a young woman, so it was not unreasonable for her to be in love with him, but her brother's actions were more akin to cowardice than cowardice. That being the case, I do not blame my brother for his ways in the slightest. On the contrary, I find this peculiar habit of mine very endearing. He was naturally very bashful and timid, and yet he had a very strong self-esteem. For a man of my brother's temperament, it is a pain so terrible that no ordinary man can even conceive of it. As his older brother, I understand it well. I wonder how much effort he went through to prevent the shame of this rejection. It is impossible not to open up to love. But if you do, and you are rebuffed, the shame, the awkwardness, will last forever and ever, as long as the other person lives in this world. He wondered if there was some way he could get out of it, so that if he was rejected, he could say that it was not a love letter. He must have thought so. In the old days, The Omiya people tried to alleviate the pain of outright rejection by means of a clever method called koika koika, which could be taken to mean either way. In his case, it is just like that. Unfortunately, his excessive precaution led to such an arcane message. But how could he have been so insensitive in deciphering his opponent's cipher, when he was so meticulous in coming up with his own? There are many examples in the world of people who make a terrible mistake because they are too conceited, but this is another tragedy caused by too much lack of self-esteem. What an unintentional tragedy. Oh, how I had been exposed to the irrevocable truth just by digging through my brother's diary. How can I describe my feelings at that moment? It would have been better if I had only felt sorry for the two young men's unfortunate mistake. But I had another, more selfish emotion. And that emotion stirred my heart to the point of madness. I grabbed my garden clogs and staggered down to the garden to let the freezing wind of the winter night blow off my heated head. Then, with a disturbed mind, I walked endlessly in circles among the trees. I was thinking about the irrevocable engagement between Yukie and me, which had been arranged just 2 months before my brother's death.